What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Can't Afford a Therapist podcast. I am your host, Austin Piazza. Whatever you guys witnessed before was just a practice run. We're back on the old gear. We're chilling.
Yeah.
Back on the PC. I don't like the Mac. And today, my guest is Nick Wibben from Just Nick and Adult School. I've been a fan for a pretty long time. Been listening to his music since I've probably in college and college radio. There is a paraphernalia in my camera. Let's just zoom out of that. And there we go. We're back to normal. Nick, what's going on?
Goodness, so much for the dress rehearsal.
Yeah.
Right?
You know.
No, that was fun. I mean, I sometimes we have moments like that on stage too.
It's the growing pains of a podcast.
You just can't get the mix right, or the feedback's just not working. You know, we learn from these opportunities, right? I try to express that to the kids I teach all the time. I'm like, failure is it's integral to the whole process. You know, if we don't fail and fall on our face sometimes, we're not ever going to get it right.
Nope.
So
no, that's what, exactly.
Never.
And it's good that you teach that to kids because they're at that perfect little age where pick yourself up, dust yourself off, you're good to go. Mm-hmm. Where like most adults I know don't have that attitude.
Yeah, the emotional intelligence piece was, I think it was really tested during this pandemic.
Yeah, you can see just going on Twitter, you can see people just having public mental breakdowns. It's very intriguing.
Yeah, the amount of 60-year-old men in grocery store lines that I saw with steam coming out their ears was, you know, it's really interesting to see what people can handle and what they can't. And I think waiting in line is one of those things that really shows the aptitude of a human being.
All right. Relax. I am notorious for my ADHD and my waiting online and my impatientness. So I can justify the waiting online thing. It's the cloth mask problem that, you know, I could do a little bit of that without complaining. Lines, like, you know, I can't handle Disney. Disney is not my place.
Oh yeah, no, me neither. I mean, I can be patient with a 9-year-old, but you know what I'm talking about are those interactions where the person is targeting whoever's in front of them, right, as being the person who's taking forever, or like those types of things where it's like very misdirected frustration.
I'm always telling my friends that. I'm like, hey, the world's not kind of out to get you. I'm like, shit's shitty. Yeah, of course, because everyone's in it for themselves, but it's not because they're out to get you. You know, that's the thing. And they don't want to hear that.
The way it was designed was flawed from the start.
So we in our practice run, we spoke a little bit about schooling, right? Let's just give a little rehash because I might just edit that in and just see what I can do. But you said you teach 4th grade, independent school, did a little bit of online teaching. What I really wanted to know is, like, do you teach like anything specific, or 4th grade is a general
ed? So
ed?
I teach all subjects except for science and foreign language and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
So heavy in literature and English. I mean, my background is in philosophy and critical theory, so a lot of, you know, those are my strengths. But I teach math and all that other stuff too. Social sciences, I think, is my favorite, especially for teaching 4th grade because it's California history. So I get to teach about the state and the history of colonization in the United States and impact on indigenous groups over the last 300 years. So it's a really cool piece. In the school that I work for, the teachers in the grades before me kind of start to work up towards that, so that the narratives that they already kind of have in place and the mindsets that they have are very pro First Peoples, which is, I think, really important when we're considering California history. Yeah. So I do a lot of that. And this year I was able to design a new scope and sequence for the social sciences. So we're actually, in California history, you typically get like Spanish mission system, European explorers, and the gold rush. And those are the 3 things that happened in California.
That's it.
And that's
now
it.
You got the 49ers and the Chargers.
Yeah, that's what I got when I was in 4th grade, going to public school in California.
Hey, listen, I went to private school in New York. We got not much of a better story here about New York. So,
Well, I mean, the amount of progress that I think we've made in, the kinds of things that we're able to teach in some of these more progressive states over the last 20 years or so is phenomenal. I mean,
And the access to just information now too. You can
yeah.
see how much stuff like that we grew up with were a little bit more whitewashed than what actually had
Uh-huh.
happened,
Yeah, but I don't think I ever heard the expression perspective taking in my entire, you know, K5 experience.
I don't think I've
So
heard perspective taking in college. I did get a communications degree, so my perspective is the only perspective. But
direct from the source.
hey, listen, we figured out the problems, we fixed it, right?
Yeah. But
um,
so I specialize in mostly literature. I love teaching historical fiction
awesome.
and connecting that to periods in history. I do a unit on westward expansion, which is really cool. Japanese internment is another one that I like to teach, and finding novels that kind of like paint that perspective, like from a child's point of view. It's cool seeing the kids able to, adopt those mindsets and try to see the world through, someone else's experience. And a lot of these things they're not familiar with yet either. So we get to
Yeah.
explore a lot of these points in American history where,
Well, I mean, just human behavior too.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's so interesting because like I didn't really learn about internment growing up. We're gonna get to music, people, eventually. This is just a cool
we
thing.
will.
And my transition, I already have a good transition question into music, but
Okay.
the like, how do you decide like what to teach or like what to like correct really from what we've learned?
Well, I start with one of the big tenets, I think, of social sciences and history education, which is over the last 100 years, 200 years, 300 years, you want to go back. History is always told from the perspective of the victor.
Of course.
And that is the language that I use with my fourth graders. It's funny because I introduce that at the beginning of the year, and every once in a while I'll get to some kid who's like really tuned in, being like, "Oh, you know why this is the case? You know why it says Indians here instead of indigenous peoples is because history is told by the victor." And so I try to, put in the very critical aspect of that, is looking at history books and being like, why was this told this way? Why was this group painted in this light for this amount of time? How did it benefit these people and put these other people down?
Or just even how they like worded things too.
Yeah.
I like literally had this conversation with my mom and sister like an hour or two before we got on here. She was asking, my mom asked me like, she's like, wasn't there already a gay president? I go, well, like technically not really. I go, like Buchanan wasn't never married. He had like something going on they reported about, but not really talked about. I go, but the most egregious one is Alexander the Great. I go, they never said he took a lover, but like, boy, did he have this one dude that like him and they were good pals for a
Oh, he
real
loved
long
hanging out with
time.
Aristotle. That's for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, they're like, these two are real buddy. We don't know what's going on here. I'm like, it's just why don't you just say it out loud? Like, why like
They were
be like,
tight.
yeah, like they were having a good time conquering the world and conquering each other, baby. Like that. Listen,
Ay,
there's
ay, ay.
nothing wrong with that, but like we don't get taught that, and like those deliberate changes of words and like
Mhm.
ignoring these certain facts of life is interesting, and a lot more like this younger generation besties exactly in the chat people are chiming in. um
It's what's omitted,
yeah,
right? Like that's
it's
that's really
yeah,
fascinating.
or it's not even omitted, it's just kind of like it's acknowledged but in a different way.
Mhm.
They're like, nah, it's not that, it can't be that. Like, and it's the same thing with like history's written by the victor, it's an interesting perspective to get it. Like, how do you put into like fourth graders? Like, that's young. What is that? Like, eight, nine?
8, 9, 10.
Yeah. How
Yeah,
do
they
you
come in at
get into
8, some are
that?
10 by that time. I mean, I'm pretty blunt with them. I tell them at the beginning of the year, I'm like, I don't sugarcoat this stuff. I mean, we're going to be talking about, you know, genocide and racism and colonization and all these things that happen, because if we don't start painting this picture now, the perspective and the picture that you're going to have in your brain by the time you're a teenager
This is gonna be
isn't going to
wrong.
be the right one, you
Yep.
know?
Huh.
Um,
What a great
so
way
we
to go
get to
about
them
it.
while they're young. That's what
Yeah.
we
No,
do.
that's good.
We
That's
get
good. You
the
have
ideas
to.
in there.
You
Yeah.
it's. I mean, that's the only way they can really learn. And I mean, inherently, I don't know where you stand politically, but like, if you ask a child, hey, those people over there don't have water. Like, what do you think we should do? The kids typically, like, nine times they say, like, should give them water. You might have that one asshole like $5 for this bottle of water, but like 9 times out of 10, the kid's like, we should help. Like, and it's inherently like a communal thing. I'm not going to use any crazy words here, but like it's community. They want to share, they want to help, and without proper history and proper education, that goes away real quick.
Yeah, I think children have a really strong natural EQ, and they typically, I mean, I was going to say they typically want to work together, but that's not always the case. But they want to
adults.
Yeah, well, they want to provide their perspectives and the things contribute in the way that is valued, right? And so a lot of that factors into the community building that we do, right? We think about what do we each contribute as individuals to our educational environment, or to your physical environment, or to your home, or to your school. It's like these are questions that I don't remember being asked as a kid. And so I was lucky, and I got to go through a pretty rigorous teacher training program over the last 3 years, and I was just really blown away by the literature that's out there now in terms of professional development and having a very socially conscious classroom, right? That's responsive to people's identities, people's perspectives, and the way that those, the emotional learning, the social emotional learning really factors into all the learning that happens in the classroom, right? If we want to make sure that our learning is productive and that we're in the best place to do that, we need to first address the social emotional curriculum. So I'm lucky. I work at a really progressive school that really values that. Yeah. And I love being where I'm at, and we're teaching in person full time right now. And we have some kids at home, when we have exposures or we have positive cases, we get some kids on Zoom. So sometimes I'm teaching to a computer and to a class full of 25.
How do you juggle that?
You don't. You try your best.
Okay.
You have humility. You have humility, and when you do mess up, you grab that computer and you talk to that kid on Zoom and you say, "I'm sorry, I forgot to start the Zoom meeting.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, you were sitting there by yourself for 15, 20 minutes."
Homie was playing
stuff
Minecraft.
Like that happens, That's true. No, that is true. Yeah, I've got some really great Zoom teaching stories. I mean, I had one kid last year, which was my first year teaching 4th grade, who would consistently send me memes on Zoom. And
good kid.
It's kind of a terrifying thing being a grown-ass adult being sent JPEGs through Zoom from a 10-year-old, because you don't know what that's going to be.
Yes, that is terrifying.
And 9 times out of 10, it was like Baby Yoda or like some like Roblox meme or something that's really relevant to them, which is great because, that's just them trying to connect and share part of their life. But I do not miss doing teaching online fully in that full capacity. The hybrid is harder, but being in the classroom, it's just, you really get to teach. You really get through to the ones who are struggling and the kids who really need the one-on-one.
Really that, it's the same thing I say about podcasting all the time. You don't get the like the body language, like that's what I learned. The first thing in communications major they teach you is communications is 70% like body language, nonverbal communication. You don't get that really through Zoom. Okay, I'm Italian. My last name's Piazza. I'm physical. I touch, I talk, I'm loud, I move my hands. So there's a lot more involved with it too. Like besides just sitting here to a computer screen, which, after 2 years of doing this now, like being on Zoom, doing everything, it kind of gets a little bit easier, but it's still not the same thing. Like conversations in person are just much better.
Yeah. I know what that's like. I was raised by theater people.
I was not
very big, Oh, one thing that kind of connects to this, which I find interesting, is the mask retention in school. Is like in schools where everyone's wearing masks, we do not see each other's mouths. And so there's an expressiveness that's lost.
Yeah.
And I've genuinely had kids when I'm like telling a joke to them or something like that, like they don't react in a way because they can't tell what expression I'm making on my face.
You can only do so much with your eyes.
Yeah, you can smile with your eyes. I've learned that. and you can look terrified with your eyes. I see that too with a lot of kids.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
You know, the amount of emotion that can come out of someone's eyes is you know, possibilities are limitless. But the other piece too, something that one prediction I have is in early childhood, which was my background is in kindergarten, early childhood. I think we're starting to notice some issues with phonics and phonetic pronunciation of things, because at that developmental stage, the reliance upon seeing someone's mouth make a particular sound, whether it's a consonant or a vowel sound, is really important. Yeah. And so I'm curious as to see the next few years, once those kids who started kindergarten in the pandemic get to me, I'm wondering what their language, reading, all those skills are going to be like.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting, because like that was one of my main like issues with closing schools. Like, I thought it was a good idea to close schools for a little bit and like get online, but after a while, it's the social development, which is what schools are mainly for.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Education's like a second. Unfortunately, in this country, education in public schools is a second degree after like social learning and babysitting.
Oh, yeah.
So like it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. And they're gonna lose a lot because, like I said, you don't get that body language thing. You don't get that extra 70% of communications that a lot of people are gonna miss out on. And already there's a huge social awkwardness to this like newer generation because of everything's so connected to screens and the internet and everything.
Just losing 1 year, I mean, I see the social regression. Typically in this fourth grade, this developmental stage, the kids are kind of done with like imaginative play and stuff like that. Like, they're not running around pretending to be Jedis or unicorns anymore. But this cohort that I have right now, they are all about it. And I'm like, is it because they missed out on a year and a half of that? And I'm like, if you did and you need this right now, by all means, gallop around like you're a horse, you know. But it's just, I'm curious about the long term of all this, and to see what kind of adults we're going to have come out of this like young Zoom generation. Yeah,
they're gonna be some weirdos. I think there's gonna be some cool kids. Don't get me wrong. There's gonna be some cool people coming out, but there's gonna be some.
I like the weirdos. I think the weird kids are my favorite.
I love them. They love me too, which is great. They flock to me, and I have like like a little gaggle of weirdos that I love forever. But you know, it's just
is that exclusive to the comedy scene?
No. It's a plague on my life.
Oddballs from all ends.
So, all right, my final question on teaching, like a serious question on teaching. Since you said progressive, this popped up in my head. Progressive school, and you're kind of like relatively towards my age, and in California, what's the pushback of CRT been? Right, because I hear this nonsense, CRT this, CRT that, when I'm like, do you even know what that means? And they're like black people in school, and I'm like, no, that's not it.
Zero, no pushback at all.
No
pushback at all. No, not even a mention of it.
Okay. Good.
And my background is in philosophy and critical theory.
Yeah, which you actually know critical race theory.
So I do teach some of that stuff to my kids, but it's the school's mission is very much in line with, you know, diversity and equity, and that's a piece of it. You know, that is a piece of it, is looking at voices and representation and all that stuff. Yeah, so we do it. We have affinity groups for our students, which we haven't been able to do it this year, but in past years, kids get to meet based on, you know, race, gender, expression, all sorts of stuff, and they get to have groups where they affinitize and talk about stuff. And I've never been to a school like the one I teach at.
No, I've never even heard of a school like that. Like on TV. Yeah. Like that's pretty much it. All right. Enough with the serious talk. This is my good musical transition, right? So the guitar's in the back, you're a musician. I'm picturing you in the classroom as like a Jack Black-esque school rock type teacher. Is that what's going on? Are you playing guitar? Are you bringing any of that like performance? Did that help you as a teacher, being a performer?
Yeah, I mean, you're constantly improvising. You're constantly acting on your toes, you know.
And you got 30 little hecklers.
You do. You do have 30 little hecklers. They are responsive to that kind of stuff. I mean, fourth grade is great because they don't think it's lame yet. They like the performativity, they like the jokes, they like the stories, and they like me. It's like
good.
that. I, as a educator, if my students don't like me, I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah, and we've all had those teachers where we like bumped heads with growing up, and
Yeah.
and I think it's a failure on them and the school system. But like you seem to like go about it a different way, like
Yeah. I mean,
individualized towards the student.
yeah. I mean, I want to be buddies with my students for sure. I mean, I want them to, you don't really learn from somebody that you don't like. And so
Oh yeah, I
I
can't
really
speak
try to
Spanish because of it.
tailor. Oh, I'm there with you. I've had tons of teachers like that growing up that I just, they had no interest in me. And so I had no interest in them or what they were teaching me. But yeah, no, the performativity and all that, it is definitely one of my tenets of my teaching. I do less of it in fourth grade than I did teaching early childhood.
Okay.
Kindergarten, I was singing and doing all that stuff every day. I typically have a guitar live in the classroom. This year, I don't though, and that's because this year the role that I took on was as a push-in instructor. So I work with two fourth grade classes, and I help two other homeroom teachers, and I push in to teach half days in both classrooms. So I don't have like my own home base, which I think has impacted a lot of that kind of stuff, because I'm doing just a ton of instruction, and it's all core subject stuff. So I'm doing less of like the community building and like the social lubrication, like that piece of it.
Have a base. You don't have a headquarters to build that community.
Yeah.
You're like always moving around.
The advantage to it is that I get to have relationships with all the kids in the grade, though, which is like super insightful. It's really valuable for the teachers that, we'll have these kids next year because I can talk about all of them. They know who to come talk to.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss out on having relationships with any of the kids that are in like another class or something like that.
Like what a great setup for a school. I'm just like thinking about it. Like that's just an incredible setup, like way to go about things.
That's what a $10 million budget a year will get you.
Okay, yes, that will. Yeah. It sounds like more like the entire New York State. I'm kidding. It's probably a lot more.
The whole school district is.
All right. Do you want to get into some fun stuff? You only have for another half an hour. I don't want to keep you too long. So
okay.
You wanna play something for us?
Sure.
Cool. And then we'll start talking about music after.
Yeah, we can do that. Let me pull up some words. Thought I'd play something I wrote this week.
Something new.
Yeah, last time I did a podcast, I premiered a song on it, and I was like, you know what? Let's just do that again. So
cool.
Let me pull up my words, and I'm working with two monitors here, so just give me 1 second. I do a lot of like ekphrastic work, which is like I'll find a painting that I really like, and I'll use like that will be my source material for a song. And so
that's definitely new because the earlier Just Nick stuff seems more
inhibitionless.
Yeah. I mean, compared to what I write and like perform stand up wise, there's a lot more to it. Like, I don't know. I was like singing along. Like I was playing Fortnite before. I was singing like I hate everything. The name of this episode is "We Hate Everything." Like that song is like one of my favorites. I'm like, because there's like a few lines that stick out to me. Like, and I'm like, I don't think that's unambitious.
No, I don't think so. I think I had a lot of good ideas when I was younger. I mean, I wrote that song when I was like 16 years old. So that song,
angst, that's pure angst, baby.
That's as angsty as it gets. I mean, those first two records were, I'd write it and it'd be done. There was no revision process. I'd sit and I'd hammer those things out in an hour. And, I think as I got older and as I did more poetry writing and I did more teaching and I took, I spent more time in higher academia, I got more into really crafting what I wanted to say and like what I wanted to do with imagery and metaphor and all that kind of stuff.
No, that's really, really interesting. I could see it the same with my, I don't play as much music. We'll get into it in a little bit, like my whole background on music. But even the way I grew up playing music and what I play, it's gone from like Blink 182 and like all that like punk pop stuff, pop punk stuff, to now I'm playing a lot of like folk punk and like more meaningful lyrics, and there's like a lot more politically motivated lyrics in the stuff that I'm listening to and playing. So I can completely understand like what you're saying, like in higher academia or in different circles that you're in, or just different experiences in life can
Yeah.
influence that kind of growth.
No, totally. I mean, I think if you're not growing as an artist, if there's stagnation, I think that can be troubling. I think there's also this expectation that you kind of live up to whatever you did in the past. And I mean, that's something that I've had to cope with over the last, I don't know, 5 years is, the fact that the stuff I made when I was a really undeveloped songwriter was the stuff that gained a lot of traction. And in my head, I'm like, that's who everybody thinks I am. Like that's the person that you're going to hear this and you're going to think I'm a 16-year-old kid, singing God is dead and, all that kind of shit, and so it's all about progression. And it's like, I have fans reach out sometimes that are like, I love seeing the development and, I love seeing how you've improved over the years and stuff like that. And like, people are still paying attention to that. And just because you have hits that are older, I think that you got to be kind to yourself and you got to just keep moving forward.
But the reason, so in my promotions for this, I use adult school because of that, like progression. Like you can just see it, be like you can just hear, like you just hear a lot of it. Also, influence 3 other people as well can have probably a lot of pull on that. But just like everything about it, like the music that you're providing is just it's adult. Again, like, lack of a better word with puns in the but you are making more adult music. And I talked about this with Bart from Mom Jeans, like, and his progression from his like solo projects. And it was like the same thing you said. It was just a lot of angst. He still makes a lot of angsty music, but it's been more of a technical upgrade instead of a lyrical upgrade. So he's like incorporating more synth and more piano and more of this. And is it because like the networking he's done or the growth he's done as a person and through music? It's a very, I don't know, I love that kind of shit. You don't really see it in comedy because dick jokes always work. But music you can definitely tell.
Yeah, I think for me, I try to challenge myself with trying new things in terms of music. And like when the pandemic started, I was like, all right, dropping the guitar pick, no more guitar pick. I was like, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna do this with my hands. I had some time to learn, and so I actually this is the guitar I've been playing on. This was when I finished my master's, I was like, I'm getting myself a new Taylor because I played on a steel string for a long time. When I was in high school, instead of buying a car, I bought a $1,400 Taylor, acoustic, it's electric guitar, because I was like, this is something I really want to invest in. And so I played on that guitar for like, I don't know, 7 years, 8 years, and I wrote everything on it. And then pandemic started. I found the very first nylon string classical guitar that my parents bought me when I was probably 9 or 10.
That's an interesting way to get into guitar.
I rebuilt it. And so I put, I needed a new bridge. It needed a bunch of work. And so I fixed it up, and I loved the sound, and I loved the nuances you get in fingerstyle guitar. So all the stuff that I've been writing over the last 2 years is more inclined to be played on nylon string classical guitar, which is very different than most of the stuff I've put out. So, but yeah, this Taylor is one of the 3, classical style models that they make. And it's great. Anybody who's interested in getting into it, who's exclusively played steel string, like this is the best guitar for that, because it's short scale. The neck is skinny.
Yeah, it looks good.
It's like, it's a really fun guitar to play, and it's acoustic electric too. So, and I think they run like $700, something like that. So it's not terrible for like a Taylor. It's pretty reasonable. But yeah, I'll play something on it. It's got a really nice warm sound, and I thought I'd play. I was thinking about what I wanted to play today, and I've been working on this song this week, and it came from a painting that I really liked. It was a painting that depicted a scene from Julius Caesar. So Shakespeare I really love Shakespeare, and as a painting of Caesar and his wife having a really intense conversation the day before he's killed. And so I took that painting, I took ideas from it, and I played around. And a lot of the themes of songs that I've been writing recently, they kind of revolve around loss. And the whole, I mean, I essentially have a record written that I haven't made yet, just because of the full-time teaching and all that. But
yeah, get that.
all of those songs kind of revolve around this theme of loss and different, different avenues. And some of them are personal, some of them are really disconnected from the person I am, and some are narratives that I've experienced throughout my life. And so right now I've just been calling this roll credits. That's the name of this one. And I think it's a cute one. It's short. How's that mix? Does that sound okay?
Sounds pretty good.
Okay. All hail Calpurnia, the humble dream of dawn. The stars are fading and she won't be here for long. No mourning widow weeps for those who turn an eye to omens dark as eventide. Old Caesar can't foresee the coming Ides of March, like Larry Robinson or mighty Joan of Arc. Some face adversity and give it all they've got, here for the moment, then they're not. All stars die by the end of the show. Roll credits and off you go. All stars die by the end of the show. So roll credits and off you go. The little bastard sings a song for the unsung. James Dean is dying in the warmth of his God's love. The young are feckless, better off if they'd have known the life you saved might be your own. And this necessary end will come when it will come. Find purpose in the cadence of the funeral drum. All that remains is but a heaping wreck of rust, and then your reel turns to dust. Yeah, all stars die by the end of the show. Roll credits and off you go. All stars die by the end of the show. So roll credits and off you go. Something like that. It's a kind of a work in progress.
That was great. That was beautiful, dude.
Thanks. Thank you. It's weird playing a song with AirPods in here and hearing like it's like I have like studio monitors. It's weird.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of things. With my new job is like a lot of client consulting. And the first thing I do is just, I'm like, all right, sit down, get behind the mics, and it's podcast consulting. I'm like, pop the headphones on. And the first thing they hear is their own voice. And it's usually the first time they hear their own voice. And they're like, what? I don't like this. This is weird. I'm like, you get used to it. Relax. Like, I just like, it takes a couple times, a little bit, just, it's
the identity crisis kicks in full swing.
Yeah. No, that was great.
Thanks.
There's still that, like, from what your older stuff has, I don't know if you're going to get offended. I hope you don't, but there's still that like rawness to it that like, even when you were younger, you had to, even if you're like, sure, there wasn't much intellectually behind it or experimental behind it. There's still like this energy and this emotion behind the words and the music. You're hitting that strong, like you're hitting that guitar hard in the same way you're picking this. It's carrying the melody or kind of just beating down, like coming home, or like bringing home what you're saying. Great. I loved it. Very good.
Thank you.
Chat's loving it too.
Oh, great. I'm glad you guys like it. I think the complementary piece between like anyone who's writing songs on a guitar and just singing along, it's like there is, it's hard to express, but there's ways in which the simplicity of that, one piece can carry the other. And I've noticed that I typically, when I write stuff nowadays, I really overcomplicate, and I'll be writing melodies on the acoustic guitar. Like I'll write finger picking melodies, and then I've done a lot of like rewriting where I've simplified, at least for this last, chunk of 10 songs or whatever, over the last year. I've gone back and I've like pulled the melodies out from something that was like way more complicated than it needed to be. And I'm like, you know what, this is a cool like lead riff on a guitar, but what if I sang that instead? Like what if that's the thing that carries, and then you kind of have this complementary vocal melody that sits on top of something that is not, it doesn't have to be as complex as you really think it's got to,
Yeah, no.
So
the one thing that's always fascinated me by musicians compared to like comedy. So do you guys like have like the equivalency of punching up, I guess? So like if I go to an open mic and my joke sucks, but there's like a little bit there, another comic would come up to you and be like, hey, do this and that instead of this, and that joke will be funny. And if like, you take that advice, like is there like a kind of community like that in the music scene?
I think it depends on who you work with and how long you've been working with them.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like most songwriters don't give each other that kind of feedback at all. Really? Because when somebody writes something and they feel like it's done, it's like that's the thing.
Because maybe it's like, a little more personal.
Yeah, I think there's a personal piece to it, and it's so much of like that is interpretable.
Yeah.
Right? Like whereas comedy, you have like a very visceral physical reaction to what is being said, whereas some people may have like emotional semblance to like lyrics or a melody or whatever. The only place that has existed in my life is with my bandmates in adult school, for sure. I mean, we've been playing together for a long time. So sometimes we, we'll say, what if we did this instead of this? Or, it doesn't happen that frequently. We really kind of trust each other with the stuff that we do, especially with this last record we just made. So we went in and we recorded a full studio record in July of this last year, which I'm really stoked to share with the world. I think it's like the best thing that we've ever worked on. Yeah. So there's a local label in the Bay Area called Lava Sucks Records that's going to be putting it out. It's going to be out, I believe, June of this year. Because of the vinyl turnaround time has really kind of dictated when we were going to be able to put this thing out. So if these pressing plants get all of Adele's records done, all million records or whatever the hell she put in, we will have our records in June, and you'll have some new music, but we'll probably put a single out in March, April, May, something like that.
Just tampering you guys now. Like, we just want 1,000 presses. Like, just help us out, please.
Right.
Like, in 3 different colors. Like, why not? Like, and you're like, nah, Adele comes first.
Adele comes first. And that's where
I understand.
If it's making the industry money, whatever. But
by all means. And Adele, Adele is still fucking. She's still. I could talk all day. So can you probably about how shitty the industry is, but like,
yeah,
Adele's got it, bro. Like, she could sing for the rest of her life. She don't even have to stand up. She could just into the microphone, sitting for the rest of her life, and just those beautiful vocal cords will carry her along. All right, good. Goodness. I'm happy you did my transition for me by talking about adult school. What have you taken from like your solo to that now 4-piece band, and from like your new album with them? Has any of that been like helpful, or is it completely brand new?
So the original structure of that band, we started that group as it's a funny story. So we played a cover show on a Halloween cover show night. I don't know, 2015, 2016, something like that. And we played a bunch of Weezer songs, which is hilarious looking back at that. And we rehearsed a bunch of tracks, and then we started jamming some of my songs at that time. And that was 2016 would have been like post bed punk and then some EP stuff. So like Anthrax Shirt was like the very first song that we like put together as a group.
Great song.
Thanks. Yeah, that one's fun. A lot of words. The older I get, the harder it is to play it. But that song I think really kind of carried us into thinking, oh, you know what, we should do this, because we had people at that cover show be like, hey, play, like someone had heard us rehearse it and they're like, play Anthrax shirt. So we played it at a cover show, which is hilarious. And then from there we just kind of took off and we just started writing stuff. And so the project's always been 50-50 in terms of songwriting. I've contributed half of the material, and then the other half of the material is written by my co-writer Anton Benedicto, who I was college roommates with in Santa Cruz starting in 2013.
Awesome.
So I've known Anton for coming up almost on a decade now. And so
was there any like jamming going on in the dorms, or
always we were, you know, that
sick.
was the era we were playing all sorts of stuff. I mean, it would have been 2013, so big on like front bottoms and like modern baseball. And
I've got a good front bottom story. So when I used to work for the radio station in college, it wasn't working. It was like a college radio station. We used to, there was a partnership with this upstate like venue, and every once in a while we'd get tickets to give away. Front bottoms happened to be there on my birthday.
Nice.
And I put in for the show, the giveaway. I got it because like it's his birthday. Let him get the giveaway.
Yeah.
I texted my boy right before I went live on the giveaway. I was like, call in 5 minutes. Here's the phone number. We rigged the giveaway, great. Dude. We have to go see the It was one of the best days like ever. And it was his first rock show. And like he's a big boy. All I can see is him just emerge from this crowd of 16-year-old girls, just push the mosh pit, sink back in, emerge on the other side. It was amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, dude. That's awesome. Great.
They were, yeah, very fun. I love, you know, my adoration for folk pop, I think, over the years has increased. I think my punk tastes have kind of simmered down a little bit.
There's also not too much coming out in the punk.
Not a ton. And I mean, the new adult school too is it's less punk rock and it's more really kind of refined rock music.
Well, I mean, that can go back to the beginning of what we were talking about. Is this progression of just becoming an adult? You know,
I mean, there's that meme where like, it's like if I had a nickel for every time I heard a band say like, the sound has matured, right? Or our sound has matured, when really it just means that we're just not playing as loud. You know, they're just playing like their instruments softer and the songs are more mellow, which is kind of true to some extent, but it's a lot cleaner. We actually put money into this record and we went to a studio.
That's awesome.
Plug for district recording in San Jose. This guy named Ryan Paris engineered it for us, and he did a wonderful job.
This is just a nerdy for me question. Did you send it out to get mastered, or is it in-house?
In-house.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, he did the whole thing in-house. We made a 10-song record. 10-song record. I think we made it in 6 days, 7 days, something like that.
Oh my goodness.
We came in really rehearsed and ready to do it. So we did, drum tracking took a day, bass tracking took a day, guitars took 2 days, and then we spent the rest of the time on vocals and mixing and mastering. And so that was done in July. And it's been really hard to sit on this for so long, but I'm excited to share it. It's the same adult school formula. So it's like 50-50. People who have, listened to some of my newer stuff will definitely recognize some of the songs in a much more fleshed out manner in which I had intended them to be.
That's what
and it does. Yeah. The adult school stuff does it gives continued life to other stuff that I write.
Great.
And sometimes it's me being like, this is the song that I'd really like, to be an adult school song. Other times it's, another band member being like, what if we jammed this? How about this? So it's a mix. And I think both things inform the writing of another now at this point. But yeah, that record's fun. It's more, I think it's more emotionally driven, which is cool.
Which is maybe needed for this time.
Yeah, there's some sad ones on there. And there's some loud, more complicated rock stuff. And
sounds like gonna be a fun album.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing, or one of my favorite things that I keep thinking about is, out of the tracks that I contributed to it, I wrote the shortest song and the longest song. And I think that just kind of speaks to like having done this for 10 years now and
Yeah.
like experimenting with different things in songwriting. And yeah, it's just cool. It's cool to see these other songs have more life and see what the bandmates contribute to it. But
That's interesting you say 10 years. I heard a comic say it takes about 7 years in comedy to find like your voice in your joke writing style.
mm-hmm.
And I guess it would take around similar time with your music writing. It takes about 5 to 7 years.
Yeah, I
Which,
think I'm really comfortable performing these days. And I mean, lo and behold, I didn't get to do
yeah,
it for about 2 years, but um, going on a stage and performing and playing, it's a very comfortable thing for me at this point. Um, and the communities that I've been a part of over the last decade, there's been a few where, you know, it's, I can go back to those places and perform, and it feels like it did the day that I met those folks, you know.
that's
And
awesome. Dude,
just to
that's
see
so
people
cool.
singing along and doing all that kind of stuff is really, it's a really profound kind of feeling. And just, I try to, it really kind of humbles me a lot. It keeps me from being into, you know, it keeps the ego piece in check for sure, because it's like very overwhelming sometimes to see how it's like impacting somebody else. Or when I get like a email from somebody that's like, this song was da da da, and I played it at my buddy's funeral, or this or that, you know, this like these anecdotes about songs that I've written. It is weird. It's a trippy feeling, and
And
so it's,
this is why I
yeah,
like to reach out to smaller, like
yeah,
musicians and everything, because like you can hear that same reaction from like Bruno Mars or like a level of that type.
yeah,
Like that was the first thing that popped in my head, like someone super famous, and like I'm sure they've rehearsed that and said that thousands of times. But like when, yeah, I follow this girl, local news legend. I forget her name on Instagram. She's a small folk punk girl. She shares like all these people playing her covers, and I'm like, that there's genuine like
yeah.
humility and humblingness in this. Like she's like, I can't believe people are like, and the same thing you just said, like, I can't believe these like people are listening to this thing I created for that, for the whatever reason they need it to, and it connected to so many different people in so many different ways. It's just a beautiful, music is such a beautiful thing in that way.
That's funny that you brought up local news legend, because uh, Emily, I believe that's the
Yeah,
name they go
Emily. Oh
by
yes.
now. Emily reached out to me years ago. I want to say maybe 5 years ago, something like that. And that was before they even really started putting anything out online. And they asked me a lot of questions about music and writing and what that was like for me. And they actually have a cover of one of my songs on like their very first EP that they ever put out.
Really?
And I tried, I think I probably try to help promote that when it first came out, because there was a cover on there, and they had done covers of mine and put them on YouTube and that kind of stuff. So like that was one of those instances where like someone is being really gratuitous about like how they want to engage with your art, and seeing
Well, I
Emily
guess
kind
she's
of be in
paying
a
it forward
position
now
that I
too.
was
Yeah.
in. Yeah. And being in the position that I was in when I was their age, you know, I mean, I had someone too who was like, we need to record a record for you, and we need to do this and we need to do that. And like, I think a lot of it comes from the opportunities and the generosity of others. So it's been really cool to see local news legend grow as a project. And yeah, it's a weird connection there. That's funny that
Yeah.
you both
I've
brought
been
it up,
trying to
because
get her
we're
on the
talking about the
show.
same topic.
Yeah, I've been trying to get her on the show. She's like very responsive on Instagram, but like I got
Mhm.
tells me to email her through like her email, and I'm assuming it just gets right through. So I'm
Yeah.
like, all right, whatever. I don't want to annoy people. There's only one person that I went out and annoyed, and it was kind of funny for me at that point where I was like,
Mhm.
it's just whatever. I don't know if you're familiar with Chapo Trap House.
Mm-mm.
No, it's a podcast. I was like hitting up their producer like every 4 months because he was like, "Oh, come on, I'm just busy. Hit me up at the end of this
Yeah,
session." I was like, "All right." So like the last time I texted him, I was like, "Just send him the SpongeBob meme, like, hey Squidward, you finished with those errands?" And
that's
he was
great.
like, "Yeah, I'm good, man." All right, it's 5:20 your time. You need to get out of here. Do you need anything to plug? Do you want to say anything? Do you have a release
Oh,
date, or can you say?
I'm gonna say if you have more questions, I'm in no rush.
Oh,
Really, honestly, I can do some more time if that's something that you want to do. But
no, I like to keep it to an hour. We're
okay,
pretty much at an hour, so.
I just felt bad because you had invested so much time in
No, no, no,
making
it's
the
fine.
technical end of this
I
work and
feel
whatnot.
bad that you just watch me struggle for 15 minutes over Zoom.
I mean, I could read your face. I knew what you were going through, and I just wanted to make sure that you felt like you got the time that you needed. So
Same frustration as the fourth grader, same face, just
um always happy to do this kind of stuff.
I'm very appreciative.
Let's see. Yeah, adult school record will come out summer. That's all. We'll just keep it at that.
Cool.
No expectations.
Beautiful.
Except it's like the best thing we've ever worked on.
Well, I'm
yeah.
anticipating it a lot then.
I'm excited. I'm excited to share it. That'll be out. That'll be a vinyl release, vinyl and tapes. We might tour it. Just depends on what the world's looking like. Some of the benefits of being a teacher. Plug for teachers. If you are a creative and you want to have summers to tour, maybe consider getting a teaching credential.
Not a bad idea.
You get a lot of time off, but we'll probably see a Just Nick release sometime this year too.
That was the only other question I had for you, and I figured it was coming.
TBD. I gotta either find a studio to make it, or I gotta rebuild my home studio, because I'm using a Yeti USB mic that I bought when I was 15 maybe, and I still have used it for recordings, and I don't even have an interface. I mean, I have done this as low budget as I possibly could for years and years and years and years. And the programs at this point, just the programs themselves. Like I went to record a cover on GarageBand like a month ago, and I was like, I don't even know how to use this.
No, it definitely gets a little bit intimidating
anymore, because like I got to something to put it out.
Yeah, I use Logic, which is just GarageBand on steroids, and I understand.
Yeah, I think that's what the adult school record was made on.
That's become the industry standard. It used to be Pro Tools, but Pro Tools took the Adobe. This is just real insider nerd talk right now. Adobe took the subscription route with like Photoshop and shit.
Yeah.
So Pro Tools did the same thing. You used to be able to pay like $1,200 for Pro Tools license straight up, which is absurd because Logic's only $200, something like that. But now you have to like rent it, and a lot of people still want to see how to do Pro Tools, which is a pain in the ass because everybody else uses Logic.
Well, I mean, I've talked to a lot of audio engineers and stuff like that over the last 2 years, 3 years, and I hear similar things. I mean, I think that's the way to go. I think the subscription model ain't gonna work for a lot of these do-it-yourself creatives,
Yeah, because they don't make any money.
Yeah, no. I mean, that's the things that it takes to actually support yourself in a DIY capacity is crazy. You really got to know how to cut expenses, and like you got to know what to prioritize. I mean, when I finished my undergrad, I did about a year of that, and it sucked. It was the worst. That's when I was like, all right, going to grad school. We're picking a career that's going to work for me, because like it's tough. Like even some bigger name musicians, I mean, I kind of heard this. I listened to part of your interview that you did with Bart from Mom Jeans, and I could hear that in his voice too. It was like even at this capacity, like there's no job security to it, and like you never know what's going to happen or when numbers are going to go up or numbers are going to go down. It's like
you can say the wrong thing and lose half your fan base.
Yeah. And I mean, you can pray to the algorithm gods all you want. The only thing that's really going to put money in your pocket is getting out there and playing shows and slinging merchandise and
merch. Yeah.
For me, I really hate that aspect of it. I love playing shows, but I am a terrible self-promoter. I am a terrible person to manage merchandise and record distribution and all this stuff. And it's something I've learned about myself over the years. So.
It's because it's asking you to marriage like these two different worlds that you are already just in another one. You're in the creative section of it.
Yeah.
Now you have to be this business person, which that's what I'm struggling the same thing. I'm like, how do I get people? Who do I get on? What are industry trends to follow? I'm like, I don't fucking understand this. I'm like, I'm just gonna talk to people I like. Like,
yeah.
How about that? Like at the end of the day, if people like what I like, they'll find it.
At the end of the day, that's the advice that I try to give people when they reach out to me about songwriting or music or whatever. I say, just be genuine. Just do what you want to do. If the advertising and the shameless self-promotion isn't for you, don't do that. Just put it into the world. Go play some open mics, go play some shows, meet some people, find the people that you like and ask to work with them. Send your demos to people you like. It's like, you just try your best with it and have fun making your art and do it for you. Because if you're not doing it for you at the end of the day, you're going to have a bad time.
I think that's
trying to impress the wrong people.
I think that's a great place to leave it off on.
Yeah.
Because that's wonderful advice. That's something I need to hear. And that's advice I give to my clients as well. I'm like, you got to come in with this attitude with like, it's about content, right? If you make the right content, I quote, was it feel the dreams? If you build it, they will come. Like that's all you need to do at the end of the day is to have that mentality. And however long it takes, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 20 years, if it never happens, at least you could say you took that effort and you tried, or you learned something to even move it into something else, like music and teaching. Like it's I don't know. It's all about perspective. There we go. Way to bring it all home. Yeah. And so we got Adult School coming out, possibly more Just Nick coming out. You are Nick Wibben at pretty much everything you said.
And Wibben,
Yep. So
catch me on Twitter, catch me on Instagram. I mean, usually when I have music stuff or I'm promoting something that I'm doing, it'll be on Instagram. Yeah. So just keep an eye out. It's sparing these days because it's, I mean, I got 45 children, to take care of. So
you're just a little shepherd.
We get to it, and you leave breadcrumbs for everyone, right? And I just
thank God it's breadcrumbs and not like Skittles, and you're rotting their teeth out.
Yeah, that's true. But at the end of the day, I just hope that the things that I say and the things that I do can impact people in a positive way. So I'm gonna keep doing that, and I appreciate you giving me the time to have this conversation with you. Awesome.
I appreciate you coming on and dealing with my struggles.
No, absolutely.
My technical difficulties. I'm gonna post your music. So if you want to hear any of Nick's music, I'm gonna post their links, like the Spotify link, in the bio. And if you want to hear more of me, I am also Can't Afford on Instagram and Twitch, and Austin J Piazza on Twitter. This episode will probably be out on like a couple days. I'm sitting on one that needs to come out. Got another one on Wednesday. So yeah, I'll let you know. I'll tag you and everything. I don't even have to tag you if you don't want to. I don't want to feel like I bothered you. But other than that, thank you again so much. And thank you everybody for listening. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys really, really, really soon.